Foreign Policy, 10th of February 2024, Why China is entering into business with an Afghan drug kingpin. A drug lord who was freed early from a U.S. jail in exchange for an American hostage and whose heroin empire contributed to the funding of the Taliban's protracted battle in Afghanistan has now entered the Chinese market. The supreme leader of the extremists' close friend, Bashir Noorzai, has established dubious joint ventures with Chinese companies in Afghanistan that have secured at least 2 contracts for minerals and petrochemicals. Mining and security sources claim these ventures are little more than rentier operations that make a tidy profit but do little to improve the impoverished nation. For many years, the Taliban's multi-billion-dollar heroin manufacturing and export businesses have controlled the world market. Known as the Pablo Escobar of Afghanistan before his imprisonment, Noorzai was the godfather of the heroin trade and the leader of the Medellín cartel until he died in 1993. Escobar was the Colombian cocaine king. In September 2022, Noorzai, a close associate of Ayatollah Khanzada, the Taliban's commander of the faithful, was released as part of an agreement arranged by the Biden administration for the release of former U.S. Navy diver Mark Frericks, who had spent 2.5 years as a hostage by the Haqqani network, a Taliban offshoot. Despite lacking any mining experience, Noorzai returned home a hero and immediately went back to work, collaborating closely with the Khanzada to land contracts for oil and gas exploration as well as gold mines in northern Afghanistan. Researcher Javed Noorani, an authority on Afghanistan's mining industry, told Foreign Policy. Noorani compared Noorzai to the late Mohammad Qasim Fahim, a fiercely powerful warlord who rose to become the republic's vice president, saying, "He has become like one of the warlords." Afghanistan's non-transparent bidding process and, most significantly, Noorzai's acquaintance with the top man were the main reasons for his company, Afghan Oil and Gas Limited, which he established with a Chinese partner, being successful in gaining contracts, according to Noorani. According to an unnamed source with insider knowledge, Noorzai is also acquainted with Amir Khan Muttaqi, the Taliban's acting foreign minister, who has a firm hold on oil contracts. A contract for exploration has been given to Noorzai's company to investigate the hydrocarbon possibilities along the Amudarya, which borders Tajikistan and Uzbekistan in Central Asia. The source stated of the Taliban, "They owe Noorzai a lot." The news that Khanzada is assisting his longtime friend's business ventures comes at the same time that China announced President Xi Jinping had officially broken ranks with the rest of the world by accepting the credentials of the Taliban's Beijing-based envoy for Afghanistan. On January 30, Asadullah Bilal Karimi attended a solemn ceremony at Beijing's Great Hall of the People alongside dozens of recently arrived ambassadors. Wang Wenbin, a spokesman for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, characterized it as standard diplomatic practice. China's long-standing intentions to take advantage of Afghanistan's natural wealth now seem to be closely aligned with the Taliban's need for financial support and diplomatic recognition that will grant their government legitimacy. The group has embezzled money in humanitarian aid since seizing control of Afghanistan in August 2021, as reported by Foreign Policy and verified in a recent report by the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, the U.S. government's oversight body for the nation. Since taking back control, the Taliban's long-standing alliance with China's governing Communist Party has paid dividends, with hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts going to Chinese mining companies. Even though the Chinese government has imprisoned almost 1 million Muslim Uyghurs in camps, the severe actions of the Taliban do not appear to concern them. The gang still hunts down and murders former military and government personnel, and it has outlawed women from employment and education. The United Nations Security Council has frequently documented the Taliban's connections to Al-Qaeda and other outlawed terrorist groups, and the organization has noted the Taliban's massive abuses of human rights. Beyond the acquisition of critical minerals, China's interest in Afghanistan stems from its planned railroads and roadways that would transport Chinese-made goods from Central Asia to European markets as part of Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, global infrastructure project. Beijing has also been providing the Taliban with equipment and surveillance technology, which helps the Taliban find their enemies more quickly, and Chinese security agencies identify Uyghurs under the protection of the Taliban as members of the anti-China East Turkestan Islamic Movement, an affiliate of the Taliban whose members the Taliban cannot unilaterally hand over to China, where they would almost certainly be executed. Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan, a Taliban affiliate, is thought to receive backing from Afghanistan for its attacks against military, police, and civilian targets in neighboring Pakistan. Similar to numerous other international Islamist and terrorist organizations, the TTP receives protection in Afghanistan while battling for dominance over Pakistan's northwest tribal areas. China, which has kept the Taliban close for decades but is still vulnerable to extremism, has realized how dangerous the Taliban's comeback to power in Afghanistan is for its security. In Afghanistan and Pakistan, where Beijing has invested billions of dollars in the Belt and Road Initiative and provided loans to save the nation from near bankruptcy, the Taliban have targeted Chinese citizens and sites. With Noorzai back in the game, money will continue to pour into the coffers of one of the wealthiest criminal organizations on the planet. According to an unidentified source, the majority of his business dealings are in the southern Poppy Belt, specifically in the province of Helmand. There, he owns vast tracts of property and operates his companies like a Mumbai slumdog billionaire. He is related to several Taliban commanders as the leader of the Noorzai tribes and was an early and generous fundraiser. In addition to acting as a middleman with the United States before his 2005 arrest for heroin smuggling, he is thought to hold political sway within the gang. In 2009, he received a life sentence. Certain members of the previous administration harbored suspicions that his release might have been contingent upon his serving as Washington's go-between with the Taliban leadership once more. But his entry into the mining industry may indicate that he is no longer Washington's man and that China will provide the financing needed to maintain the Taliban in power in the future. Although Noorzai probably has enough opium stockpiles, Afghanistan has outlawed the production of poppies, which has allowed the Taliban to enter the more lucrative methamphetamine market. The ephedra plant, which grows wild in Afghanistan, yields meth. It can also be manufactured with inexpensive, easily accessible chemical inputs. It is far less expensive to create than heroin, regardless of how it is made, and it yields a much higher return. Intercepts globally show that the restriction on poppy production has already resulted in a massive increase in meth production. Iranian border guards said on January 2 that they had just confiscated 171 kilos, 377 pounds, of Afghan meth. Noorzai's recent business endeavors serve as a reminder that corruption has historically been a prominent feature of Afghanistan's mining industry. The Afghan people have been taught for decades that their country will become prosperous due to large amounts of resources, which include precious stones, lithium, marble, gold, coal, copper, and iron, among many other things. Instead, the big players were kept out by the 20-year war and a lack of infrastructure, and the Taliban took advantage of the violence to cover up massive plunder. It seems that Noorzai is carrying on that legacy via now Taliban-controlled quasi-official means. In the northern province of Dakar, his company has been awarded a $310 million, 3-year contract to develop the Semti gold deposit. This mine has a reputation for drawing in well-connected fly-by-night operators. According to researcher Noorani, Westland General Trading, the mine's last contractor, was able to secure the contract thanks to ties to a former government minister, even though they had the necessary skills and knowledge to extract the projected 31 metric tons of gold from the deposit's deep, stony riverbeds. According to the terms of the contract, Afghan will give Afghanistan a 56% share of its profits, and development is expected to begin in 3 months. Noorani referred to the deal as unprofessional and unrealistic, stating that years of testing, planning, and preparation would be required before significant mining businesses could start operations. He said, extensions have already been granted. He stated that it is more likely that Noorzai will sell his Chinese partner shares of the company, which will subsequently be sold to smaller Chinese businesses that will then salami slice their shares, continuing the money-flowing chain reaction of corruption. According to Noorani, the mine is not developed in this rentier scenario, no money comes into the Afghan government, no jobs are generated, and all of the small-scale subcontractors' investments are lost. Except for Noorzai and his Taliban leadership allies, everyone loses.